Yeah, just looking at the class today. All right, good afternoon. I know you're not here for me, but you're here to hear from the President of the Security Council of the United Nations for the month of May, and that is Ambassador Pedro Comisario Afonso, the permanent representative of Mozambique to these United Nations. Tomorrow, our guest will be Abdullah Al-Dardari, the director of the Regional Bureau for Arab States at the UN Development Program, and he will be joined by Munir Tabet, the deputy executive director of the UN Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia, which is based in Beirut. They will both be joining us, though, from Amman in Jordan to brief on the launch of the UN Development Programme's report entitled War in Gaza, Expected Socio-Economic Impacts on the State of Palestine. This morning, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, touched down in Santiago in Chile, where he will be chairing the biannual session of the UN System's Chief Executive Board for Coordination, otherwise known as CEB. The CEB will get underway tomorrow and bring together the heads of the UN Systems organizations. The members will reflect on current world affairs as they affect and are related to the UN system. The agenda of the meeting, which also includes discussions on organized crime with a focus on the governance and rule of law, and on the Summit of the Future. Tomorrow, the Secretary General will have bilateral meetings with the President of Chile, Gabriel Boric. Turning to Gaza, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that aid organizations are continuing to face a number of access constraints in reaching people in need of assistance across Gaza. This includes denials of planned missions or prolonged delays at Israeli military checkpoints on the roads between the northern and southern parts of the Gaza Strip. OCHA says that more than a quarter of humanitarian missions to northern Gaza in April were impeded by Israeli authorities, and 10% were denied outright. We and our humanitarian partners are continuing our efforts to scale up aid operations whenever and wherever possible. Today, the World Food Programme said it reached Beit Hanun in northern Gaza, which had been inaccessible for months. The World Food Programme that's setting up says that setting up storage space there will allow it to bring more food to Gaza and other parts. The agency says it is ready to scale up food assistance in northern Gaza, but stressed that rolling back 6 months of starvation will require a steady flow of food supplies. Meanwhile, OCHA warns that the situation in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, is escalating. Our humanitarian colleagues report that there have been at least 800 attacks by Israeli settlers against Palestinians there that resulted in casualties or property damage since October 7th. And last night, Martin Griffiths, the Chief Emergency Relief Coordinator for the United Nations, warned that for the hundreds of thousands of people who have fled into Gaza's southernmost point to escape disease, famine, mass graves, and direct fighting, a ground invasion would spell out even more trauma and death. He said he welcomed Israel's recent reopening of the Erez crossing in northern Gaza to move aid from Ashdod port and Jordan, and he also welcomed efforts to bring in aid by sea. But he added that these improvements in bringing more aid into Gaza cannot be used to prepare for or justify a full-blown military assault on Rafah. A ground operation there, he said, will be nothing short of tragedy beyond words. A quick humanitarian update to you on Kenya. We and our partners are continuing to support the government-led response to the heavy rains and flash flooding. As of April 29th, we have provided, along with our partners, emergency assistance to more... Somebody's phone or somebody's head is ringing. All right. Humanitarian update on flooding in Kenya. We and our partners are supporting the government-led response to the heavy rains and flash flooding. As of 29 April, we've provided emergency assistance to more than 124,000 people with our assistance of our partners on the ground. That includes water, sanitation, hygiene supplies, food, health, and psychosocial support. Our partners are also supporting rescue operations and setting up camps to host men, women, and children displaced by the floods. According to national authorities, the floods have impacted more than 190,000 people and displaced over 150,000 people across the country. The floods did not spare the agricultural sector. Over 4,800 livestock were lost and over 27,000 acres of cropland damaged. The peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has ended its operations in South Kivu province. In accordance with Resolution 2717, which was adopted in last December, the mission withdrew its force from South Kivu by the end of April, and starting today is limiting the implementation of its mandate to the provinces of North Kivu and Ituri. As such, the mission's mandate, including its responsibility to protect civilians, has ended in South Kivu province. In a statement, the head of peacekeeping mission, Bintou Keita, underlined that the responsibility for the security and physical protection of civilians now lies with the Congolese Defense and Security Forces. According to the disengagement plan, the government is strengthening up its presence where the mission is leaving. The first UN peacekeepers were deployed to South Kivu in 2003. Since then, more than 100,000 peacekeepers have served in the province at different times. Ms. Keita thanked the troop and police contributing countries that have sent women and men, adding that their commitment, expertise, and resources have made an invaluable contribution to peace and security in South Kivu. And as we have mentioned in the past, UN agencies, funds, and programs are not leaving South Kivu. They will continue to provide support in line with their respective humanitarian and development mandates. Update from Myanmar. A team on the ground tells us they are concerned by the spreading of misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech, especially in northern Rakhine State. We fully support community leaders in Rakhine State, especially women and youth groups who are coming together and redoubling efforts to promote social cohesion amid increasing signs of tension and the risk of communal violence re-emerging in the current very volatile context. Addressing the root causes of systematic discrimination and impunity in Rakhine State will be essential in establishing a sustainable pathway out of the current crisis facing Myanmar. The failure to do so will only fuel Myanmar's vicious cycle of violence. That's according to the UN team, and we have, of course, been consistent in condemning all forms of violence against civilians in the country and reiterate our call for the protection of civilians, including aid workers, in accordance with international humanitarian law, for the cessation of hostilities and humanitarian access. And just to note that the tragedy of migrants and refugees around the world is ongoing. And today, the UN Refugee Agency and the International Organization for Migration mourn the latest tragedy in the Atlantic, with at least 50 people reportedly dead or missing at sea in their efforts to reach safety in the Canary Islands. These people are seeking a better life, but their dreams are shattered because of greedy smugglers and flimsy boats. Both agencies underscore that safe and regular pathways must be accessible and inclusive to save the lives of the refugees and the migrants. And just to remind that the World Migration Report 2024 is coming out on May 7th, and it's a comprehensive look at the global and regional migration data and evidence-based analysis of complex and emerging migration trends. And basta. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. So we can tell our staff in Chile, is there going to be any press availability at all at the end of the chief executive's board
There
meeting?
will be, I believe, some type of press availability with when he has a bilateral. When he has a bilateral meeting with the president of Chile, so I would encourage your colleagues to be in touch with the presidency.
And secondly, with all of the talk of a possible ceasefire in Gaza between Hamas and Israel, is the United Nations prepared to go in immediately with massive humanitarian aid?
Well, we are constantly planning for a contingency plan, but those may be, whether they're negative or positive. Obviously, if there is a cessation of hostilities or ceasefire, it will make it a lot easier for us to distribute the aid that's already in Gaza. I mean, as you well know, there has been an increase of trucks going into the crossings, and the challenges we've been telling you about is really for us the challenges that we have in distributing the aid within Gaza. So obviously, if there is a cessation, if there is a ceasefire, it will make things a lot easier for us to get around. Mr. Bays? Yes.
Does the Secretary-General believe it's acceptable to protest what is plausibly a genocide?
I'm sorry?
To protest what is plausibly a genocide, to have
Where
protests?
are you leading me, Counselor?
Well, I mean, a general point. Oh, well, okay, that was more
I
specific.
mean, do we stand against genocide? Yes.
Okay, and it's acceptable for people to have public protest against genocide? I mean, what does he think of the recent protests and the response overnight in Colombia, for example? Would you think that was heavy-handed or acceptable?
We're not going to micromanage every situation on the few campuses that we've seen in demonstrations we've seen in the U.S. out of the many universities. There are basic rights to free speech, basic rights to peaceful demonstration must be upheld. There's also a basic zero tolerance against hate speech. As the Secretary General said, it is up to university administrators in their wisdom to handle this and to balance these things out properly.
I have one other quick clarification. I have some other questions, but you can come back to me for those. But just on clarification, you read a statement earlier on about the humanitarian situation, and then you talked about increased violence on the West Bank, and you quoted OCHA. I mean, why is it OCHA? Why is it not Mr. Wennesland's office that's talking about violence on the West Bank? Surely he should be monitoring that, not the humanitarian coordinator.
Well, the humanitarian coordinators, first of all, the resident coordinator in Gaza in his office is a deputy to Mr. Wennesland, so it's all done under that office, but the humanitarians have a specific mandate. And Mr. Wennesland has mentioned it in his numerous briefings to the Security Council, as did the Secretary General yesterday. Deji.
Steph, actually, I want to ask this question yesterday to Secretary General. It's been confirmed that Hamas and Fatah had a meeting for a possible potential reconciliation in Beijing a couple of days ago. What's the position of the Secretary General on this issue? Does he think this is a positive move or negative ones? And how would this affect the two-state solution here?
We have no insights into the talks. Obviously, the issue of reconciliation within the Palestinian Authority, Palestinian State, is something we have been pushing for. We've always believed that the Palestinian Authority has jurisdiction over whether it's the occupied West Bank or Gaza. Anything that could lead to reconciliation should be considered positive. Madame.
Thank you very much. Hi, Stéphane. I have a question. I want to know if the Secretary...
Can you speak a tiny bit louder?
Of course, yes.
Oh, no, but the
I'm
mic
sorry.
is working. The voice
is working now?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
I want to know if the Secretary General is aware of the horrific report by BBC about Niko Shah Karami's death in Iran, and if the UN have any plan to ask BBC to hand over this document to be addressed and investigated by higher authority.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We've seen these very, very troubling report. I think the Secretary General has repeatedly spoken out of his concern of human rights violations in Iran. There is a special rapporteur on Iran, and there are other human rights mechanisms. And I think whatever information the BBC has brought should be sent to those mechanisms. Celia.
Steph, Bentou Keita is said to be leaving. Do we know when?
I do not know.
Okay. And about Iran, is the Secretary General or the people in charge of human rights will try to make sure that the Iranian rapper who has been sentenced to death is not going to die?
We have stood and continue to stand against any use of the death penalty. And we very much hope that this does not come to pass. And as I said, these are issues that have been regularly brought up with the Iranian authorities. Jordan, and then Stefano.
Thank you. You mentioned that WFP reached today Beit Hanun. This is what you just said, right?
Well, one of us should have been paying attention, so I think, yes, I did say that.
Okay. Jordan government issued a strong statement today condemning Israel and the settlers because they have different account from what you read. They said Jordan and WFP and some organization from UK, USA, and South Africa went today to Beit Hanun through West Bank and Israel. And then they were attacked by settlers. And
Where?
Today. Yeah.
But where? Where were they attacked?
They were in the road from Jordan to Erez.
Okay. I had not seen those reports. Let me ask our WFP colleagues. Yes, go ahead.
Jordan, in its statement, they asking the international community to condemn such attack because they claim that they have a breakthrough that they can go by road to Gaza,
indeed.
And then now settlers attacking them, and the government of Israel should actually make safe pathway or road to Gaza.
As I said, I have not seen this particular report. Let me look into it, and I will get back to you. Stefano Vacara.
Thank you very much, Stéphane. What the Secretary General think about the resolution that will be presented at the General Assembly on Bosnia-Herzegovina on genocide, basically to formalize with a resolution that what happened 30 years ago was a genocide. Is that this divisive action, or is something that is a good idea to have it after 30 years?
Look, member states in their wisdom will bring forward resolutions on different topics and vote on them as they see fit. On this particular issue, the fact that there was a genocide in Bosnia was recognized by a court. And we always say here, I always tell you, you're asking about genocide in different places, if it's been recognized by a court. It has, as far as we're concerned. So those facts have not changed for us.
So it's a good idea.
That's not at all what I said. I didn't say it was a good idea, I didn't say it was a bad idea. I said member states will do whatever they do in their wisdom. I stated our position. You may be able to do the compare and contrast in the analysis.
And then just a quick follow-up of what James asked before. I understand that the Secretary General yesterday said, he was trying to protect freedom of expression. At the same time, he said that hate speech is unacceptable. Well, how did he react after just few hours after he had the press conference where he answered like that? In New York, of course, okay, the police arrested about 200 or more students, but in Los Angeles, there was also a lot of violence with.
We deplore the violence. We saw the fights that took place on the campus in California between two groups of students. The Secretary General, I think, he was speaking based on his experience as head of government at a times where there were demonstrators and demonstrations by students. As I said, we're not going to micromanage each situation on some of the U.S. campuses that we've
But can you give
seen.
me a better definition?
He has spoken on what he thinks are the principles. There are things that for him are not negotiable. They are difficult to balance. Nobody's denying that these are challenging times, but he believes that university administrators need to do it.
Can you just give me a better definition of, more specific definition of what is hate speech, like an example?
You want him to use the hate speech?
I'm not.
Well, in this, no, you know, in this country,
I'm not going to.
in this country, there are Nazi. In this country, there are people that can go on the street with the Nazi symbol. That is, of course, is obviously a hate.
Different countries have different.
Right, and
different
nothing
countries
happened to them.
Have different laws. We are guided by the principles of the Charter, and more importantly, by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, including my own human rights. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, it's Eric with Kyoto. So now that the 1718 expert panel's expired, is the SG considering directing something to replace the role of these 8 experts?
That would be up to the Security Council. The sanctions monitoring still stands. Edie, James, Deji, Evelyn, and Jordan. Very quick questions because I don't want to keep the ambassador waiting.
Quick questions on Haiti. First, is there any word on when an international police mission might be deployed? And secondly, did you get a figure on the amount of money that's needed in the trust fund?
No, we were not able to be given a number, a top number. I think it also depends, because part of it depends on what each contributor will need and what member states. So it's not as if, it's not like a humanitarian appeal where we say we need X amount. But we need, what I can tell you is that we need more than what we have. James.
And on the deployment?
On the deployment, we don't have a date.
I'd like to get the latest on whatever we're going to call it, the peer, the J-lots or whatever.
Yeah.
Has anyone from the UN or WFP actually signed anything? Is there an MOU
No,
being signed?
not
or
that I'm
anything?
aware of.
Okay, but my understanding is it would be WFP that is the part of the UN that will do this work?
There are discussions going on within the UN system with the various actors. Obviously, as you well know, different agencies are in the lead in different things. So, you know, UNICEF is in the lead on water and sanitation. WFP is in the lead on logistics. So obviously, the different parts of the UN puzzle will play the parts that are
can I pick
to
you
them.
up on that? But the agency that's in the lead on distribution, and this is basically a distribution, is UNRWA. So why would WFP? Yes, that getting the aid to Cyprus would be WFP. Once it gets to Gaza, isn't UNRWA the lead agency to distribute it?
It will be a UN effort.
And what I mean, does the UN not have concerns about a pier that's being built on an area where they're demolished Palestinian homes? That you're going to be working around the Israeli military?
What we have said is that we support sea, we support air operations. We want to see more land operations. This is a sea operation. We are working with them, but obviously we have certain parameters that need to be respected, notably the basic humanitarian principles that we have of independence and being free from all sorts of military.
And last question on this. Is the pier going to be in the right place? Because I'm told it's going to be in central Gaza, and surely the aid is most needed in northern Gaza, and the pier is going to be, we think, beneath the Netzarim corridor that bisects the Gaza Strip, meaning that the aid will have to go through choke points there.
James, we did not choose the location of the pier. Deji, Evelyn, Jordan, and then we will wrap it up.
Well, okay. Just an hour ago, the Israeli ambassador Erdan in the GA hall said this. He basically said, talk to the member states, most of you that supports the forced unilateral establishment of a terror state, you should be ashamed of yourself. That's talking to member states. He talked about the protesters in the university, called them pro-Palestinian mobs.
Deji, I will stop you right here.
agitators.
Unless you mention the Secretary General by name, I'm not going to react to
okay,
what
and also
that ambassadors or others have said.
Yeah, and the UN agencies said UN cares nothing for Israeli blood, nothing, zero. It's a collaborator of the Nazis of our day. Do you think this is a hate speech? First,
I'm not going to.
Now I'm giving you the example of
I'm
hate
not
speech.
going to. You know, ambassadors, representatives of country,
but
speak from the podium. They say what they have to say. It is not for me to provide color commentary.
But is it a hate speech?
I'm not going to provide color commentary.
Do you feel offended? Does the UN feel offended?
I have a
by this?
very, very thick skin. Evelyn.
Thank you, Stéphane. Israel has said they're going to go ahead with their plans for Rafah. Has the UN been informed?
No, we are not privy to military operations. Jordan.
No, but what is there? Is the UN doing anything in Rafah right now?
Well, we
Yeah.
have a huge humanitarian operation, Rafa,
Yeah.
and I would suggest you see what Norman Griffith said and what the SG said.
Yes.
We're very well aware of the context. Jordan.
Would the SG meet with the Premier of Israel if the ICC issued warrant against
I'm
him?
not going to get into any hypotheticals. Enjoy the day, and I will get the ambassador.
Stéphane, I have a question. Why I was ignored again? I always get ignored. I don't know why.